Hello, my name is Rihanna Binkley. My pronouns are she, her. I am with One Treasure Island, and I am the program manager for this Treasure Island Oral Histories project. And this is Atta.
Hello, my name is Atta Pilram, and I'm a long-term resident of Treasure Island.
Great. And today is Thursday, March 17th, and it is about 9:35 in the morning. And we are doing a recording for Treasured Stories, the oral histories of Treasure Island between 1997 and the present. All right.
Very good.
So why don't you tell me about the first time you visited Treasure Island?
I visited Treasure Island many years ago. I think it must have been about early or mid 80s when I was crossing the bridge and I noticed the Treasure Island, and I drove down and I find out it's actually a military base. And so from the top of the island, top of the bridge, it looked really beautiful place. And so I never thought that actually one day I'm going to be living here. And so many years later, I used to have a telecommunications and data communications company creating smart building, basically using the existing wiring infrastructure and putting our technology and providing what's it called now, voice over IP. And when the military moved out or the Treasure Island was decommissioned, I heard on the news that lots of dot-commers are moving in and they are requesting the similar type of facilities and similar type of tools that they have on the regular offices and at home, basically getting internet access, multiple telephone lines, and so on and so forth. But the problem is, or problem was, the place wasn't really, the Treasure Island was structured to handle this type of tenants. And so I stepped in, and knowing the knowledge that I have from creating these smart buildings in high rise, in fact, Embarcadero 4 was one of our accounts. And so I stopped and talked to the director of the island at that time. I think his name was Patrick, and he passed away. He was a fantastic guy. And I came in with an open door, and I told him this is what I could do. If they're interested, I would do it on my own dime. And he gave me a tour of the island, and I got just more fascinated with the whole place. And then he asked me to go at it. So I brought in some of my own technology partner, and at that time, and we applied to become a competitive local exchange carrier with a special tariff for the commissioned military base. And so the game starts from there, and we have many tenants on the island that they needed our services, and it was a very exciting time. And red carpet whenever I was coming to the island and giving the presentations about what we're doing. So we really add a huge value to the island at that point. And we continue to do that until the crash of the dot-com crash, and it's in 2000 basically. And with that, most of the companies that they've been in the infrastructures, including the company used to call MCI, and they all went down. And so we were part of that infrastructure type of companies that we were providing services. So we also went down. So it took me about a couple of years to figure out what is my next game plan would be. And so we used to live in San Jose area. So I used to drive to San Francisco almost on the daily basis. We rented one of the apartments at Yerba Buena Island, so we could have our engineers basically providing 24/7 support for the tenants. And so around early part of the 2000, I decided to basically sell my house and move full-time to the island. And by that time, my twin daughters moved and to UCSD, and they started their university. And so my wife and I, we decided maybe we start the life all over again. And we became a empty nested again overnight because the twin daughters. And they were both accepted at UCSD. So that was a good part of it. And so we both moved, Alice and I, we both moved to the Yoruba Island and continued basically the life. And in between, I was trying to come up with a different kind of solutions and different things to do. And so I started to learn more about wine and winemaking. And so I learned about that part of the world. And so one of the idea was to starting a new winery, Rumi Wine and Vineyard. And then in the same time, since I was always had my own companies, I started my other companies. I came up with another technology-based company, and that led to the starting a company called Care Anytime. And the concept was to bring in care to the people directly and utilizing nurse practitioner. My wife is a nurse practitioner too as well. So we could bring in a holistic view of health and wellness basically. So we started with that part, and meanwhile I discovered that my own glucose level is going through the roof, and I was very surprised because I'm a sailor, so I'm on the water continuously with the sunshine. I'm very active and semi-vegetarian, so I didn't know where that came from. And so it was really confusing. Since I was starting this company, Care Anytime, and looking at a holistic way, I discovered that actually why my body was depleting some of the essential vitamins and minerals. And so by basically readjusting my my intake of different type of food, we are starting to regain my B complexes that were depleting and some of the essential minerals. And within about 45 days, just about, my glucose level went back again to normal. And I took the A1C, which is the gold standard um, for determining your diabetes or your glucose metabolization within the 3 months or so. So within these 45 days, so I thought maybe I could bring in that knowledge also to the public and see maybe the other people could benefit from that. And out of that, this new company called Forenza Corporation, which started, which basically we're looking at now the inflammations and how the inflammation affects you on your body. Meanwhile, I got involved more with sailing communities on the island, and I became both myself and my wife Alice, we became a member of Treasure Island Yacht Club. It's a club that's been on the island about 55 years or so. A small, great, friendly place, and so we basically became involved with the club, and I got involved more with the activities and management, and I became one of the commodores in 2014. And since then, I continued with some of my own activities. I used to do a flying, and I got back again into the flying and got involved with the paragliding. And so the combination of the paragliding and sailing and my new company got me very busy with the activities. And I'm also a painter, so I'm using the yard in the back as my studio. So we're launching the company, in fact, next month, and with a plethora of different type of populations that we could test their glucose level, or actually their protein level, to determine the type of the chronic inflammation that people are suffering from, and coming up with a remedy to reduce or mitigate inflammation, the effects of inflammation. So that's kind of a write-up about kind of a summary about my activities on the island. I'm also elected board of Citizen Advisory Board, and I've been a member, gosh, probably about 15 years or so. And the idea is to providing advice and input to TIDA for their management of the construction that is happening now on the island. About a couple of years ago, in fact, last year, we also noticed that we have to also move the club, the Treasure Island Yacht Club, from where the place used to be, which used to be a Pan Am terminal. And so we moved to the building one, which is historical building. And I was elected again for the second time as a Commodore of the club again, and brought in my own startup management entrepreneurial, basically to restart basically and expanded the idea of the club and bringing more to the communities and leveraging on the communities on the island. So bringing the world of the sailing to the folks on the island. So we have now quite a bit of the members are coming from the community themselves. They're learning about the sailing, the water, and appreciating basically the world of the sailing and boat.
That's awesome. That was a perfect kind of rundown of how involved you've been over these last 25 years.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your connection with the island and the community? What did you notice about Treasure Island and the community when you started spending time there that felt different than other places?
When I brought in the service, or before the island was when the island was decommissioned, and many people used to live on the island, I would say probably about maybe 5,000, maybe even 7,000 on both islands. So it was a very vibrant place. And during the crash, basically the place overnight became a ghost town. And there's few of us really still on the island. Now the island is maybe about 2,000 now, plus minus. And it's gone through quite a bit of the changes. And so I could see there's a number of the needs right now on the island as the island starts to grow and is going through its own probably third renaissance, basically from the time that it started basically as a part of the I guess it's 1937, 1938 of the World's Fair, and then moving in of Navy because of the Pearl Harbor, and staying on the island until it was decommissioned in 1998 or so. And then when the residents came. So the island has gone through a number of the different changes and it continues to change. And so the demographic of the island is really composed of the mix of the people culture living there. It's a synopsis of basically everybody is in the world you see on the island here. Different cultural diversity, quite a bit of the cultural diversity. Number of the artists are on the island, many engineers, many care providers all across the and also the business community has also changed. We used to have, basically there was only one winery on the island, and then it became 5 different wineries. Now there is much more establishment are coming in. We have 2 great restaurants on the island, Mercedes and Araceli are 2 fantastic places to go. So the island is going back again, reminds me of the time that when the dot-commers were here. And another beautiful part of it is to see that kids are born on the island. And that's a fascinating part that you could see lots of youngsters now, lots of kids around, which that wasn't happening for many years. So I think this is one of the beauty of part of the island, that we actually literally we're seeing a new town is built from scratch, from the bottom up, and
Mhm.
how people could cope with it, how moving around and just make sure that there's a new arrival can be accommodated. Well, of course, with that change also comes over some type of pain, and make sure that other people that used to be on the island, we have a place now on the island that we continue enjoying the island and contribute to the community as well. So there could be this kind of societal changes, and with that comes some type of pains, and which requires now a new type of vision, a new way of looking at this cultural growth.
Right. That's great. Thank you so much. I kind of want to go back to your work with the Citizen Advisory Board.
Okay.
What do you feel like was your biggest accomplishment, and you meaning you or the group of you, the CAB, during your time? Like, how did you feel like you were getting really involved and kind of and making changes that benefited the community?
So I had a vested interest, obviously, living on the island, and I really wanted to contribute and participate with the changes. Citizen Advisory Board has gone through at least a couple of changes. Once, when the whole construction idea was in the earliest stages of the design concept. And so we spent many, many years thinking about what are the different things could come to the island, how the island could be kept using the green technology, what are we going to be doing to make it as a unique place that hasn't happened before, with bringing new technology, new ideas. So some of my contribution was, again, my kind of understanding and some of my technology-based background, as I brought in, for example, the telecommunication services to the island. So that was some of my contribution, understanding what the needs are and how we could actually scale the technology that could be beneficial to everybody on the island. So I was coming from the technology point of view, and of course, being involved with the yacht club and sailing, I was also very conscientious about what we're going to be doing about this body of the water, Clipper Cove, and how we could make it accessible to border communities, as well as keeping its pristine situation as well. So I brought also that kind of view and that kind of attention to as part of my participation. Now, since the construction has happened, I think it's the time now that the Citizen Advisory Board probably going to go looking into its new role and to see how we could contribute now to this change of culture that is happening on the island right now. What type of needs they have, and what the newcomers are expecting to be here. What type of businesses, how are we going to be supporting the businesses coming here? And of course, the whole controversial situation right now with toll. And of course, we all want to have the best, but who's going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? So we see on how we're going to reduce the traffic on the Bay Bridge. We're expecting 10,000 plus people are coming to the island. So there is all these complex issues, and we have to look at it from really all different kind of angles. We have to look at it from the developer point of angles to see they're putting their money there to bring in this new community. We also have to look at for the people who are coming here. And of course, with the COVID, the whole dynamics of the cultures dynamic has changed. And lots of people are working from home. Lots of people are working on the short trips that they have to take. And so they have to get in and out. Can they afford to come into the island each time they come and they go pay $5 on top of the Bay Bridge? So this is that issue there. And how is that type of new changes going to affect the businesses? And who would like to come to this island knowing that there's going to be this kind of restrictions or exist as well, and it's going to be expanded on. So it's I think the Citizen Advisory Board roles, I'm hoping that could change, that we could bring this kind of input and advice from the community since we
Mhm.
live here on the island. So we've seen the changes in the island. So we could contribute that kind of changes.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So you mentioned that you and your wife moved to Yerba Buena Island. So how did you end up on Treasure Island?
So we basically had a number of different choices when we moved in. And so when we moved in, it basically was a ghost town. There was nobody around. And so I basically selected one of the apartments that was available in Yerba Buena Island. We knew there's going to be eventually changes. We have to move. And another interesting thing that happened when we got closer, we heard from a rumor that when we been told that we have to move, we just have to pack and leave. And so one of our neighbors actually happens to be working with community uh, changes in the different kind of communities. And
Mm.
he did the research and he find out actually we are the tenants living under the commissioned military base. We have lots of rights
Mhm.
because we took the risk of being someplace not being even cleaned up yet, totally as it has right now. And so we looked into it. So we're creating a community of citizens basically living on Yerba Buena Island. That we have all these rights. We've been here since 2000 basically. We moved in 2002. Other people lived there even before that. And so we extended that that knowledge to the rest of the people on Treasure Island. So we created this community. So we started negotiating with the city that actually we do have quite a bit of rights. And some of the rights are actually that we have to get some type of right of refusal when things start changing, and we could have been offered basically a new place. And for us, one of our neighbor actually, Christoph, he's the one that actually spearheaded the whole effort of getting the neighbors together and reading about the laws and putting the communities basically together, and the energy that we brought from the Yerba Buena Island to the communities of the Treasure Island. And so with that knowledge base and that agreement that was put together, when the time came to move from Yerba Buena Island, because that's the first phase of the development was going to be happening,
Mhm.
we were part of that contract that we had to actually have a similar type of living style, basically,
Mhm.
on Treasure Island. So I guess because of our kind of, if you want to call it movement, but because of that, that idea was extended to everybody else on the island.
Wow.
And I guess about like 800 people left at that time. So again, thanks to Christoph that for spearheading that idea and everybody else kind of contributing to that movement. And so we are in Treasure Island because of the construction was starting, and basically we plan to continue to be here. This is our home. I've been here about 20 years plus now, and I love the place. It has island, basically both islands. It has a magic that once you live here, it really grows on you, and that's the beauty of this island.
So my next question will be, what do you hope for the future with the island?
I'm hoping that actually we could get more diverse cultural diversity expanded on the island.
Mhm.
I hope that it could become an affordable place for other people that could live here and they could start bringing their businesses. As of right now, with the pricing that you're seeing, I'm not sure if it's going to be really affordable for everybody. So I'm hoping that we could, that kind of stuff, I'm hoping that could bring something to it. I'd like to bring in more social activities to the island, because the uniqueness about the island that we live in we live in San Francisco, but we are not living in San Francisco at the same
Mhm.
time. It's kind of an isolated place by itself. So it has some benefits being isolated, but also it has some disadvantages.
Mhm.
I'd like to see if I could bring in more type of facilities that exist on in the city. bringing more art and uh, type of activities on the island. Uh, I'm hoping that we could have more kids could be grown up on the island. So we have to could accommodate them, the next generation of people living here, and the education and how people could access to the schools, getting in and out. Uh, Looking forward, actually, the ferry services to expand it, I think is a fantastic uh, perk of living on the island. And so we need to contribute to that as well. And so I'm hoping that, again, the diversity of the island will expand and becomes more affordable for everybody. And so that's really my hope is.
That's great. Thank you. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Do you have any memorable experiences, any funny stories?
Well, there's just so many of them, and I'm going to think about that. of I think one of the memorable part is the fact that when we came to the island, we had no clue at all what to do for many years, and we were welcomed by the open-hearted Treasure Island Yacht Club, and they went through their own renaissances, changes that happened to the club when they were a Navy base and then became now. And so I think that's one of the amazing things that really happened, that it became part of a culture that I had no clue before, and no idea that such a dynamic group of people even exists. And so that brought us more into that fold. And so other part of it is the fact that when it came to selecting members of Treasure Island Citizen Advisory Board, there was only a limited people who were supposed to be elected, which kind of surprised me. So the funny part of it is the fact that they actually had to set up the voting booth on the island, and there's 2 or 3 candidates. And so some of them has to be elected, I think, by the mayor's office, and one other person has to be elected by the community. So they have to go through the whole process, and I thought that was interesting. That was fun to be part of that. So I'm actually elected board member, with everybody else kind of selected. So
wow.
Yeah, so that was kind of, and that actually gave me much more motivations to be part of the island and part of the communities, because now I'm really voted in, so I really feel obligated to be contributing more with it, with activities. I'm also a member of Treasure Island Museum, and this is a member as well as a board member of the island, of the museum as well. Fascinating group of people. I learned so much about the history of the island, and from the beginning how it was. And being an artist myself, I really appreciate the fact that that was one of the venue of the World's Fair, that anybody could come to the island and see these famous artists actually at their workshop, and they could see their techniques and how they work. And I think that was a fantastic. I wish I had this opportunity then to see this artist and being part of that changes that was happening. And this is really the magic is about this island. There is just so much of the history here. And then you look at across the water and you look at the Nimitz House and the contributions of Admiral Nimitz and his leadership characteristics and how he really became a 2-star basically, I think was a 1-star admiral to become a 3-star admiral. It never happened just about. But his leadership is fascinating. The more I learn about this individual, I become much more fascinated. That so there is so much of history. There is so much of stuff here that I can't wait to tell people. Whenever the people come here and they just see this construction and stuff, and when they come to building 1, and I give my spiel, I say, wow, we didn't know that such a thing existed. We didn't know actually the place was started because of the technology. And the contribution of Pan Am,
Mhm.
basically studying of the system that that now the pilots could travel all over the world at that time with the China Clipper. And this Clipper Cove was one of the runway for traveling from San Francisco basically to Hawaii.
Mhm.
And who would have thought that this body of the water was actually a runway? And well, that's such a fascinating history behind Pan Am.
Mhm.
So I mean, this is an amazing place, and I hope that I could contribute. My family and I would contribute more to the expansions of the island. We could contribute with the community with the island of all different facets of the island, and so we are here to here for a long, long time to stay here for a long time.
Wow. Well, that is amazing. That's an amazing story. You've already contributed so much to the community. I mean, it's great. It's kind of like you came and you met Treasure Island and you fell in love and you're never leaving.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you so much, Atta. I really appreciate it. This has been great, and you are really going to contribute to this project. So,
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording.